Ladies and gentlemen, today on the channel we're going to cover and talk about my new mastery build after the Labyrinth of Legends, because we have gone all in, guys. We've gone balls to the walls with this new setup and it is pretty ridiculous. But before we start the video, I want to give a quick disclaimer on this build. This build is by no means the best all-around build. It has some very strong advantages in several aspects of the game, but it also has some very big disadvantages to it as well, and we're going to cover those kind of as we progress through the video. But this is just not your kind of like standard copy and paste this build. This is going to work for everyone's setup, so I just wanted to make that very clear. However, saying that, this build has huge advantages and is in somewhat necessary to accomplish certain things in the game, but I want to talk about those things and kind of what my goals are after completing the Labyrinth, you know, what we're shooting for now. And the kind of two things at the moment on my radar are I need to do a lot of arena grinding. There are some really good champions coming up. There's Nightcrawler, Colossus, and then Beast. So 3 champions in a row in Arena that are absolutely amazing, and champions that I've yet to obtain as 4 stars. So I'm going to be doing a lot of grinding for that. We're going for Nightcrawler in the second round, and probably Colossus and Beast in the first round. So one of the things after watching Brian Grant's streams and videos is he runs the Suicide Masteries, and he's just persuaded me how much more efficient they are. They are like ridiculously good for grinding Arena, because not only did they really bolster up your PI, so the PI of your champions is a lot more inflated, so you get more points for Arena, but because you have so much more damage, the fights are ending in like half the time, so not only are you getting a lot more points, but the fights are a lot quicker as well, which makes kind of grinding for like possibly like 6 to 7 million points to be safe really quick and really efficient, or much more quick and much more efficient than without. So that's one of the reasons that I've kind of opted for a build like this. The second reason is that now my goal after completing the Labyrinth for the first time, the next thing on my to-do list is to get the Legends badge. So to be competitive with some of the top players in the monthly timed event, you need to come in the top 100 to complete the event in a timely manner. You need to do it really quickly, and if you don't have a full out crazy damage build, you are just simply not going to be able to compete with the times of people that do have a full out damage build. So that's one of the reasons as well that we've gone for this crazy damage build. Now let's talk about just quickly some of the disadvantages of having this build before we go into the actual setup. So the disadvantages are that every fight that you do, you are going to lose quite a bit of health at the start, and then after the first minute, you're going to stabilize after that for a minute or so, while the mastery known as South kicks in, and then after that you're going to just be losing like a little bit of health, anywhere between about kind of 2 to 5 points of health every second, depending kind of on like the level and health pool of your champion. So you're going to be taking damage, and you're also going to be taking damage when you're using your special attacks via recoil, which unfortunately is an unavoidable mastery that you have to pick up to get to the stronger Suicide Masteries. So that makes you very vulnerable as well in Alliance War defense, especially when it comes to the top tier stuff. So while, you know, you can still be an adequate kind of anything else but a mini boss and a boss, like you can't really be an Alliance War boss or a mini boss and expect everybody not to absolutely roll over you with this build and setup. So that's one of the disadvantages of this build, is that you are slightly more vulnerable in Alliance War defense, and every fight, you know, you potentially run the risk of, well, you're gonna lose health every fight if you're doing general questing, which for most quests, for most difficult stuff at my level of play, is not a problem at all. But for beginners, newer players, if you can't play perfectly, this is definitely not the build for you. Like, just getting out there straight away, guys, absolutely no BS. If you cannot play at a really high level, and I'm still not the best player in the world, but you know, I can get most of the parries, most of the evades, and I'm working on the intercepts. I need to get a little bit better at intercepting, but if you cannot play close to perfection, you are going to have a very bad time with this build. Saying that, this build is crazy, guys. It's absolutely phenomenal for damage. So let's talk about kind of the point allocation here. So everything toward the left is fairly standard stuff. You got all the stepping stone masteries to precision and cruelty, which of course, you know, give you a huge damage increase, but I think it's mainly the stuff on the right that we want to focus on. So I've gone for 3 out of free in Glass Cannon. Loved that mastery in comparison to Brian, who only put 1 point in it. But I just wanted to put 2 additional ones. I've actually removed some of the defensive masteries, and I have a slightly different thing where I've gone for more points in Deep Wounds because I have some really, really strong bleed champions instead of Assassin for comparison there. Also got 3 out of 3 in Liquid Courage, which is 30% additional attack, and Double Edge is an additional 30% attack. So with all of those masteries combined, that is an additional like 67.2% attack, which is absolutely huge. That is ridiculous in terms of the amount of additional damage you deal. Now for Gwenpool in particular, which we did a video on earlier, we also have 5 out of 5 in Deep Wounds, so all of my bleeds last 2.5 seconds longer, and if I have more health points than the opponent, then it's instantly going to strike 1% of their max health down whenever I apply a bleed effect. So I love Deep Wounds so much. It's one of my favorite masteries. Granted, it doesn't like widely benefit all of my champions, but the champions that it does benefit, the champions that it does impact, it makes such a huge difference. Like, you saw how ridiculous, if you saw the video earlier, Gwenpool versus Winter Soldier, a rank 3 Gwenpool managed to get a Winter Soldier down with this build in 178 hits, which is crazy, guys. Those are ridiculous numbers, especially for a rank 3 champion. That's kind of very competitive to what a rank 3 5-star Star-Lord would be. So yeah, really, really crazy numbers, absolutely insane. I haven't opted to go for Assassin. I really do not value the Assassin Mastery outside of maybe Labyrinth of Legends. I think it maybe has it. If you want to fully clear Labyrinth of Legends and you're going to invest all the money to do all of the fights and stuff, I think Assassins definitely has a use there. However, outside of that, I think it's a little bit rubbish. It just doesn't really have too much of an effect. It only comes into use when your enemy has below 18% health, and for the majority of fights, you know, when they're at that point where they're at 18% health, it only takes like a special 2 or a special 3 to finish them off. So it just seems very expensive, and also, you know, additional points for something that I don't believe has like a great benefit overall. So again, I just haven't been swayed by the Assassin Mastery at all. It just seems a little bit too excessive for me. Now, when we get into the defensive points, we have kind of a fairly standard defensive setup here. We've got obviously salve and also recovery to help, you know, subsidize some of the insane amount of damage we're taking with the suicide masteries. We've also got 3 out of 3 in willpower, so you know, we're kind of like stabilizing ish at the health for the first minute, and then we're losing a little bit after that. I also noticed that Brian Grant, in comparison, who also runs the Suicide Masteries, does have Colgate, but I'm not really convinced by this champion. It doesn't really, this mastery, it doesn't really seem like it's too beneficial. So it's, your champions take 10% less damage from any bleed they suffer. It's, you know, it's 3 points potentially for 30% less damage on the bleed that you only have at the start of the fight. It just doesn't really seem like it's worth it for the 3 points there. The amount of health that you're gaining overall, I think it hasn't sold me at all. I'd rather go for even more damage in Glass Cannon. So yeah, that's kind of what I've gone for there. And in terms of utility, I have gone for, so obviously, guys, we have parry and evade. We've got parry absolutely maxed out because that damage reduction, the 33% damage reduction from having parry maxed out is very, very important because it allows most of your characters with around 40% block proficiency to consistently land perfect blocks. So that's extremely, extremely valuable. Perfect blocks on parry, should I say. And then I've also, so I had a bit of a choice here with the 3 remaining points. I could either go for increased stun duration by 0.5 seconds, or petrify, which basically means when the champions are stunned, they also reduce enemy health and power gains by up to 10%, well, up to 30% when you got 3 out of 3 points. So I think this was a little bit of a tough choice for me. I decided in the end to go for stupefy, just because I also have 3 out of 3 in, despair. So if you know, for example, if I did go for, petrify instead of stupefy, while I would have had that reduction, my stuns would have been less, so it would have been, again, a bit less effective. So I don't really see too much like of a need for it, and overall, I really like this increased stun duration, especially at the moment, because the main character I'm playing around with, the main character that I'm just absolutely like messing about with, is Gwenpool, and her stun procs randomly, so having that like additional like half a second on it it allows me a lot of the time to get an additional round of combos, but I think those last 3 points in you know, the increased stun duration, they could be shifted. They definitely could be shifted into, if you really wanted to, you could maybe put an additional 2 points in Pierce if you wanted even more damage. Potentially as well, you could put additional points in Assassin if, you know, you are really convinced on that mastery. If you would like to go for Courage as well, that's a potential option if you're going for some sort of encounter where you have to, well, where you are dying quite a bit. I think that might be a fairly decent option. But yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts and opinions on it. There are a few points you can shift around, and again, when it comes to masteries in general in the game, a lot of it is personal preference. It's based on your roster. This one, however, I think is extremely efficient for accomplishing the 2 things that I'm aiming for at the moment, which is getting a ridiculously good time for Legends and also grinding Arena, because we need to grind a lot of Arena. So, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed this video on my new mastery setup. If you did enjoy it, feel free to hit a thumbs up on the video. That'd be greatly appreciated. If you do have any questions or recommendations or suggestions on the build, let me know in the comments below. Again, this isn't a great all-arounder build. If you want a kind of decent all-arounder build, go on YouTube, Seatin's mastery setup, and there's one from September, which was my previous setup before this one, and that one is like really good for as an all-rounder, but doesn't really excel super in any aspect of the game. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the video. Once again, thank you for watching, take care, and have an absolutely fantastic day.